1985 was a huge year for video games, as the industry saw its revival after the monumental video game crash of 1983. In this video, I have prepared my list of the top 10 titles of that year, lest we forget our amazing heritage. Starting at number 10, I have placed the game The Ninja for Sega Master System. In it, the player takes the role of the ninja Kazamaru, with his goal to save a princess from enemy forces. The game is among the very first ninja video games, and it was well received at the time for its fast-paced action and diverse level designs. It also contributed to the rising popularity of ninja-themed games in the mid-80s. It was also among the first titles that were released by Sega for its Sega Master System to challenge the emerging domination of Nintendo. This is the beginning of a legendary rivalry that would paint the video game industry up until the mid-90s, when Sony would make their grand entrance into the scene. Moving forward to number 9, we have the game Gauntlet, released for arcades by Atari. It's an innovative dungeon crawler title that stands out with its cooperative multiplayer gameplay, where up to 4 players can choose from 4 distinct characters, each one with its strengths and weaknesses. The players must survive increasingly more difficult levels filled with various types of enemies, like ghosts, grunts, demons, and even death itself. Also, your health is constantly ticking down, adding additional pressure for quick movement in an already frantic gameplay. Gauntlet was a commercial success and has inspired many sequels and remakes, and its influence can be traced even to modern hack-and-slash and dungeon crawler games. At number 8, we have the game King's Quest II, Romancing the Throne, developed by Sierra Online for MS-DOS. It is continuation of the first King's Quest game from 1984, and in this one you play King Graham, embarking on a new quest to find a queen for the Kingdom of Daventry. The game is a classic graphic adventure with a text parser interface, where you type commands like look, talk, take, etc. to interact with the world in order to progress the story of the game. You drive the story via exploration, solving puzzles, collecting items, and interacting with various characters. It's an improvement over the first part in every aspect, thus cementing its reputation as one of the best adventure game franchises of the 1980s. Standing at number 7 is the game Space Harrier, released for arcades and developed by Sega. It's a fast-paced third-person rail shooter, where your jetpacker type of a hero fights a variety of weird-looking monsters while avoiding missiles and obstacles. It's a groundbreaking game in several aspects, but especially graphically, with the crisp sprites and the 3D feel combined with the unique and colorful design of the environment and monsters, made this game look amazing and even futuristic at that time. It's incredibly fast-paced and punishes any mistake that you make, so it requires total concentration when playing it. Space Harrier was a critical and commercial success, establishing Sega among the leaders in the game industry. Going to number 6, we have the game Gradius, released for arcades by Konami. In this space shooter, you control the Vic Viper, and your goal is to fight through waves of aliens until you reach the final boss of each level, until the last one. It's a pretty difficult game to beat, but I certainly had fun revisiting it. Gradius is probably the most influential shoot-'em-up games of all time, inspiring a long-running series and tons of games in that genre. Its power-up system became a staple for future shooters, and its tough difficulty and cool design earned it a top place in arcade gaming. Followed by its NES port of 1986, Gradius solidified its legendary status in gaming history. At number 5, we have Ultima 4, Quest of the Avatar for MS-DOS, developed by Origin Systems. It's a classic RPG where your class is determined by answering series of moral dilemmas in the beginning, and then drops you in an open world filled with towns, dungeons, and more. Ultima 4 is one of the first games to implement a moral system, by emphasizing moral choices and personal development rather than just combat and leveling up. Together with its deep narrative and option to solve challenges in a non-violent way, all of the above mentioned marks Ultima 4 as a revolutionary title in the RPG genre, and remains one of the most beloved and best RPG titles of the 1980s. At number 4 sits Battle City for NES, developed by Namco. I'm pretty sure that every gamer from the 80s and 90s must have played the game at some point, so it doesn't really need an introduction. Destroy the other tanks while protecting your own base from the enemy. This game is an absolute classic though, which is particularly fun for multiplayer sessions. Bring your younger brother or sister and start beating the levels. Despite its simplicity, I'd say it has a certain strategic depth that adds up to the experience and addictiveness of the title. Battle City remains one of Namco's most memorable early titles, and it's fondly remembered by yours truly, as well as by many retro gamers around the whole world. Coming in the top 3, we have positioned the game Ghosts and Goblins, released for arcade and developed by Capcom. The game has a fun horror setting where you control Prince Arthur, and guess what? You have to save the princess. But really, if I should start from anywhere with this title, it certainly must be with its ridiculous difficulty, to which modern games can't hold a candle. As most of the games of that time, you have only few lives to spare and they're just nowhere near enough in order to even have a chance to beat it. Most of the reputation of this title is centered around its legendary difficulty, and I'll leave it at that. But despite of, or because of this, the game has maintained a strong fan base and remains a defining title of the arcade era. At number 2, we have the game Kung Fu, the NES port from 1985 of the arcade system's title Kung Fu Master. Here again, your goal is to save your beloved from the bad guys. You have to navigate 5 floors of a temple, each floor having a distinct boss that you have to beat before progressing to the next level. It has a simple but addictive gameplay where you utilize punches and kicks to beat waves of enemies coming at you, while also having health bar and timer. It's hard to overestimate how influential was this game. It established a whole new game genre in the industry, and it inspired the creation of many similar subsequent games, even movies. Until today, it remains one of the most important games of all time. And finally, at number 1, with no surprise, is Super Mario Bros., Nintendo's flagship title for NES. It's probably the most iconic and influential video game of all time, where you control Mario or Luigi to save Princess Toadstool. It has precise controls, variety of levels, power-up system, as well as cute design. The game almost single-handedly revived the gaming industry following the crash of 1983, set the standard for the platformer genre, and solidified Mario as probably the most recognizable video game character. Today, Super Mario Bros. Cultural influence cannot be overstated. It spawned numerous games, comics, even movies, and in my opinion, it rightfully tops the best games of 1985, if not even of all time. As a conclusion, I'd say that 1985 was perhaps the most important year in gaming history, and its legacy can be felt very much even today. And by looking back, we can only marvel at the progress that the video game industry has been making for the last 40 years. We should never forget where it all started, as I mentioned earlier, as the games of today were built on the shoulders of giants. Thanks for watching.